Hello, and welcome to the Week 21 devlog for QuiVr, my HTC Vive archery game. This week's update has been unique in that almost the entire week has been spent on a singular item. Obviously, that means that this item is very complicated, and the reason that this week has been fairly lacking in continual updates is that most of the work was done under the hood. There were a lot of systems that needed to be put in place for this all to come together and work in a way that I was comfortable with. So, one of the interesting things that you may have noticed before is this tower. And previously, it has been inaccessible because the teleporter doesn't work. However, in this devlog, we will get to see what is up there. So, this doesn't need to be here at the moment, but instead of restarting, I'll just turn it off. So, what we have here is a mannequin. And actually, we also have a little figurine of ourselves here. And this is what we look like to other players. Now, why give that intro without explaining a little bit about what this week's system is all about? This week, I have implemented a very complicated server item library for player customization. And what that means is that all the player items are now hosted on a server, and your account is tied to what items you own. So I have a couple items, and while there's not an interface to start changing yet, we do have a way to switch. So for me, it's the touchpad on the bow hand should give us some new items. So this is all pretty cool. The mannequin uses the exact same system that other people see, so the exact same code determines how your mannequin looks like. That code is also on other players' computers, determining what your player looks like on their computer. So all of this has been in an attempt to really easily add new helmets. To create the current database of about 15 items took about 5 minutes after I had a couple models to get into the server, set up a couple items in the database, and just set up some colors. So it's really easy now to add a bunch of items. We also have this cool blue tipped arrow, which has a blue trail. There's a bunch of things that are going to be able to be customized in the future. Currently, only the helmet, chest, and arrow are available to be customized. That's because for the chest armor, only the colors change because I just haven't been able to find good armor models for free. However, the art group that we're working with is working hard on creating a full set of really cool armor, gloves, helmet, chest, arrow, bow. We're going to get a lot of really cool stuff in the near future. And so this system has all been designed to set that up and get it ready to go because I know that people want to differentiate themselves. So, how does the item system work? Well, we haven't nailed down exactly what system we're going to be using. However, I've tried to make it as extensible as possible. So currently the way it works is we're going to be using random item generation. So before this a interface for changing items arrives, and before really item drops come into play, the way it's going to work is that each player gets 5 items. One item is added every time you open up the game from scratch, from Steam, and then you can hit your touchpad button to load, to change your items just randomly based on what you currently have. So if you have 2 arrows, a chest piece, and 2 helmets, it'll pick one random helmet from your 2, one random chest from your 2, and just use that custom arrow. You'll load in without any custom items until you eventually select your outfit, at which point the game will remember what your outfit is on the server. So every time you load up the game, if you find an interesting setup that you like based on your 5 random items, you can keep using it. Um, this is the first time that I've put any thought or programming power behind security. So really the biggest point of failure, I think, is the random item generation. Once you have an item, it's kind of locked away in the server, and you download and upload to it based on the information about what items you've been given. But the actual item being given to you is kind of the single point of failure here. I've talked a little bit about security in the past. That's the reason why I'm not doing versus multiplayer, is because the server architecture that we're using just isn't really capable of supporting that without significant changes to the entire architecture of the game. However, this one point of failure for having people be able to generate their own items and give themselves items, I wanted to put a little bit of protection. So there is a bit of encryption checking to make sure that when you request to the server to be given an item, that it is a legitimate request from the game, and the encryption key actually changes every time you get an item. So even if you are able to give yourself a single item, then you should have to go through the entire process of cracking that encryption value, the key, each time you try to give yourself an item. So it's not extra security. I wouldn't put my own money behind the system at the moment, but it is a first attempt at actually adding a little bit of security here for this one section. And I would love if obviously our player pool of people who have Vives right now is a little bit small. However, I assume that the actual number of encryption and software engineer experts in the community is fairly skewed to my advantage. So if anybody is a security person who enjoys the game, I'd love if you could take a couple shots at generating your own items and then report back to me with your discretion as to how you do it, whether it's public or private forum access, preferably private message, of how you did it and what I might do to make the system stronger. I'm not going to explain any really more details about it because I think that the difficulty of figuring out exactly how it works is part of the barrier to trying to do that. But I realize that I'm a single person trying to set up security, and there are always going to be smarter people out there. So if someone could take a look and try to give themselves an item, I won't explain exactly what you need to call or anything like that, but just give it a couple shots, because I'd love to catch it here instead of later on down the road when there's a lot more infrastructure built upon the underlying system. So that is the new armor system. It is, as I said, it's really complicated. There's a lot of stuff going on. You have a full armory and inventory system. Currently duplicates are allowed, and that is by design. I know right now with the current system of you getting 5 random items, duplicates seem annoying. However, in the future, there's going to be a disenchanting system because item effects, the plan are that they're going to be tied to items, and you'll be able to kind of re-roll that with the resource you get from disenchanting. Obviously, no microtransactions. This is all going to be given in-game. It's just a way to make the game live a little bit longer and give it some sorely needed replay value. So I'd love to hear everybody's feedback on the system. I'm going to roll it out pretty soon just because I want to get it out into the open and make sure that things are working. I'm not sure if I'm going to allow people to change their inventory after a game has started under normal circumstances, but for this test case, I'd like to allow it. You're able to change it every 1 second. This is also the first time I'm letting players actually hit the server. I've been fairly cautious about how I do hits to the database server because we're running a nano instance in Amazon Web Services, which is the smallest instance that you can actually get. And so I didn't want to overload it. However, based on the current system, which actually tracks a ton of information already, your accuracy, your best wave, the global averages for all that, we're actually never getting above kind of 5% CPU load. So I'd like to kind of start ramping it up to see what my upper limit is for what I can do with the Amazon Web Services servers to make sure that I'm not spending too much money on that as opposed to, I mean, it's not too much money, but it's just I'd want to kind of know what the limits are for that. We can always upgrade the server, but if we can figure out how to do this with a limited server and not have more monthly fees on running the game, then it's much easier to let it stay open and free to test for longer. So I encourage you all to check out the new item system. I think it's really cool. There's a lot of stuff going on under the hood that has a chance to break. But hopefully it's been created has really been created super modularly. So if I get a new helmet model or a new chest armor model, it's super easy to add those in. Without any additional work on my part. It's more drag and drop and move around so that it fits positionally on the character. So I'm really excited about this system. I think you're going to see a lot of changes to it in the future to really flesh it out. Obviously, the final result this week is fairly basic in terms of what you get to see, but under the hood, it's a much more powerful system. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave this area available in the actual update that makes it out. I probably will, just because it's an interesting little place. You can play with this little character. For each there's only one little character, so in a multiplayer game, so only one person will get to have it, even though each player sees their own character as the visibility here, because it's actually just another little mannequin pasted in there to see there. And that whole system again is super modular. I can have 100 mannequins around here, and they'll all react to whenever you change items. It should react correctly. I'm also going to try to add a couple more items throughout the week here, just to kind of see how that works. So you may see people later on who have items that you haven't seen before. That's just because I'm adding new items as we go along, and the intent is that I won't have to submit an update to Steam to add new items, which I think is a really critical and cool thing to be able to do. To obviously for geometry, like new types of helmets, I have to submit an update because I'm not going to submit the meshes yet through any type of workshop system, although maybe in the future I'll consider how that might work. But to do recolors and kind of add new flare options shouldn't require any type of update. So that's it for this week. Keep on the lookout for additions to this whole system. It's very much evolving. I have been working really hard to get this system up and running and user-facing so that you can see some interesting results of the week's worth of work that has gone into this system. And I hope that you agree with me that the end result looks really cool. Not just this end result, but if you imagine what it has the potential to do, I think that it's going to add a lot of replay value and value in general to the game to be able to customize your character the way you want. So that's it for this week. I appreciate everybody giving feedback. There's a couple other little changes. I've added an extra spot to this gate here for the time being. There's just one more spot so that it's a little bit more large group friendly. Even if you have one player who may be less experienced, you can still come over here and help out at defending the gate. There may have been a couple other minor tweaks, but this system has really been 95% of the time this week spent as development time spent. So I look forward to your feedback. Again, this hasn't been super tested in multiplayer, but I think that the worst that would happen is your character doesn't get updated on other people's computers. I'm interested in seeing that. I'll have to play a number of games with people over the next week or so just to make sure that everything is going smoothly. But that's it for this week's devlog. I really appreciate everybody's feedback and continued support. And I will see you guys next week or in game.